Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today at Team 21. Today, myself and Akshay are going to take you on a journey of how we combined ITIL 4 best practice and Jira service management to help our teams enable change in the story of cooperation at the co-op. But before we begin, I've got a question for you. I want you to think about your own change management process in your organization. Does it allow your teams to move quickly, or is it slowing you down? In the last few years, we've made some significant steps forward with our own change management process. We've managed to decrease our deployment time for a production release by 85%, and we've doubled the number of deployments. That has really accelerated the release of our software features. So let me talk to you about how we achieved this. We started off with our people. We collaborated with our development, our IT operations, and our risk and audit teams, as we all had different perspectives on how we should be managing change. So it was really important that we worked together towards the same shared outcome. We also adopted new technology to meet our needs using Jira Service Management, or at that time known as Jira Service Desk, so that we could give people the right training and support that they needed to be able to use it. And finally, we applied best practice thinking. Our product teams were using DevOps principles, but our current service management and ways of working were based on a traditional ITIL framework. So we looked towards a more modern approach to change management that better aligned with Agile and DevOps values, and that's where ITIL 4 guidance really helped us. But before we get into our journey, here's a little bit about ourselves. The Co-op Group are a collection of businesses across retail food, funeral care, legal services, and the insurance industries. We're a member-run organisation, and we've been around since 1844, and our business model was a traditional one with little digital or online presence. But in 2016, we embarked on our digital transformation journey that really changed the way how we do business. And this led to the introduction of our first digital product, which was our online membership service. We've since launched a co-op home delivery service, a mobile app, funeral and legal arrangements online, and many others that have really benefited our customers.
Hi guys, and this is Akshay. I'm with AXELOS Global Best Practice. We're a small company based in London, and we like to see ourselves as the custodians, the people responsible and in charge for developing a multitude of bodies of knowledge, ITIL being one of them. And we also manage other bodies of knowledge like Prince2 for project management, managing successful programs, management of risk, and many others besides.
Moving to a digital way of working comes across with many challenges, especially around how we manage change, and I'm going to cover a few of these off over the next few slides. As our engineering team started to design, build, test and release products and services in-house, a big problem for us was how we managed our flow of change as it started to increase. We needed to balance this increase with the risks that could occur so it didn't negatively impact our services. But our product teams found themselves in conflict with our current service management and our risk controls, which were more suited for stability over agility. Our enterprise IT service management and governance approach wasn't set up for agile change, so most of our changes needed to go to a weekly central change advisory board that had a 5-day lead time. And as we moved to a more decoupled microservices architecture, our service teams modified their ways of working to improve the flow of change without compromising on stability, and we started to hold a daily local cab. At these local cabs, changes were presented on a Kanban board for our service team approval, which started off really well, but soon these ended up lasting well over 2 hours. And this was as our volume of change started to increase, so it wasn't a sustainable way of working for us. This also meant that changes that had been tested and ready to deploy started to queue up in a backlog. And when they were released, this ended up adding more risk and more service incidents. Our product teams felt like they weren't trusted to deploy changes. Our audit teams wanted to see a record of changes in our enterprise tools, and our operations teams couldn't scale to do change management in this way as our volume of change started to grow. This lack of overall collaboration caused low morale and frustration all around, as our teams had evolved, but our processes had clearly not. So in 2019, we reshaped our vision for what we wanted change management to be for our digital teams, and at the same time, ITIL 4 guidance was landing, which was a perfect time for us to explore the best practice and to help us shape our thinking. We were already using service management processes based on ITIL version 3 throughout the rest of technology, but ITIL 4 allowed us to unlock our potential so we could talk to our teams and our leaders in a common language that aligned with how our product teams operated. And this would help us meet our ambitions for simpler, leaner, and more valuable change management.
So let's face it, ITIL version 3 is much maligned, but there's still a lot of good guidance contained in those 5 or 6 books. But at the same time, we're seeing new ways of working or newer ways of working, changing how teams are organizing themselves, changing how organizations themselves look at the work that's being done and manage the work that's being done. We see trends such as autonomous teams and self-organization increasing at various levels of the organization, leading to an interesting situation that whilst the taxonomy of ITIL and IT service management might remain the same, the application of these concepts is radically different than what it was 5, 7, or even 10 years ago. And this is why we started working on ITIL 4 back in 2017, 2018. We're finally publishing ITIL 4 Foundation in February 2019. The guidance has been updated to reflect these newer ways of working. And in order to be able to do that properly, we've also introduced many new concepts and models, some of which I'm going to be describing here. So the first thing we need to talk about is the purpose of change management. We've seen the purpose of change management change. In ITIL version 3, we described the purpose of change management as the control of the life cycle of a change, enabling beneficial changes to be made with the minimum of disruption to IT services, which is fine enough on its own, but we felt that this wasn't quite right for the digital age, the digital era, which is why we then changed it to change enablement. And we talk about change enablement as being focused on maximizing the number of successful IT changes by ensuring that risks have been properly assessed, authorized, and changes themselves scheduled. And when we shifted the focus to change enablement, we also defined what we call the practice success factors, the things that are required to make change enablement successful. These practice success factors are ensuring that changes happen on a timely and effective way, minimizing the negative impact of changes, ensuring that stakeholders are satisfied. So it's not just your customers, but as Sandeep was mentioning earlier, there could be auditors, compliance officers, business functions, many, many more people than just the users of your products and services who need to be satisfied. And last, but certainly not least, we need to make sure that changes happen in a way that meet governance and compliance needs. One of the key models that we introduced in order to explain ITIL 4's perspective on value and products and services is what you see in front of you. We call this model the 4 dimensions of service management. And when you look at it, you might recognize a lot of these components in your own organizations. This model describes the 4 different types of resources that any organization needs to be able to manage effectively to be able to create its products and services. But equally, it's the different types of resources that an organization needs to create its service management capabilities. So when Sandeep and the team at the Co-op were looking at switching from change management to change enablement, they were looking at their own organization to make sure they had the right skills, the right levels of authority and delegation. They needed to make sure they had the right tools, which I'm sure he's going to come to in a bit. They needed to make sure they changed their ways of working, or they had the right ways of working. And equally, they had the right partnerships with third-party providers of various services or even the tools themselves. And all of these resources are managed according to external factors which constrain how these resources can be used. So whether that's political or economical or technological and so on. There's a lot more detail in the ITIL 4 Foundation book, so I'd encourage you to take a look at that if you want more information. The second model, which helped the Co-op, is this one, the service value system. It's a very high-level view of all the different parts of an organization that you'd need to be able to successfully create value from the opportunities or demand that's presented in front of you. So you need the guiding principles, which is a way of behaving or a way of making decisions, the right level of governance, a couple of concepts that we're not really going to go into any detail here. The service value chain, which is a set of activities, practices, which is a set of resources or capabilities, and continual improvement, which is a philosophy that everything in the system can be improved, can be made better. So the guiding principles are going to form a bulk of the next section in this presentation. While I don't have time to go through each of these 7 guiding principles you see in front of you, we are going to be talking about them a little bit in subsequent slides. What you see here is a set of behaviors or philosophies or approaches that allows the whole organization to come together and act in a uniform way, or make decisions in a consistent way, or react in a consistent way. So the guiding principles, if you will, are kind of like a behavioral compass. So let's start with the first one appropriately. Start where you are. This guiding principle talks about how you would need to take stock of your current situation, your current constraints, your current resources, your current opportunities, understand what's working for you, and to pull that forward whilst at the same time transforming or changing the things that you don't want to take forward.
Okay, so we started with this principle by moving our plan changes from spreadsheets and post-it notes into a Trello Kanban board so we could visualize this and share it with other teams. Our development teams are already using Jira software for their backlog planning and tracking their user stories and issues. So our service teams wanted to use a tool that would feel familiar with our product teams. So we quickly enabled the out-of-the-box change management module in Jira using the pre-built workflows and the fields that allowed us to quickly get started.
The next guiding principle is focus on value, which is a really powerful concept because it gets people from different stakeholder groups around the table to talk about what is value for our customers, what's value for our business, what's value for external third-party providers or regulators or so on. It allows you to blend multiple perspectives to make sure that you're consistently able to meet or exceed the various often conflicting needs that your teams might be facing.
It was really important that the information on our change request form provided value for all of our teams. That's because value for our service teams and value for our risk and audit teams is very different to what value means for our product teams. So when we spoke with all of these teams, we agreed what information was really valuable for them that we needed to capture. For example, with our risk and audit teams, we agreed that we would omit certain information from the change record if it could be retrieved from other systems when it was needed, as they recognized that the way that we did agile change was different.
The next principle is collaborate and promote visibility, which is fairly self-explanatory. You need to have the right level of transparency within your teams and between teams, which will allow for greater levels of cooperation and collaboration, not just between teams, but between different parts of the organization, or indeed between people outside your organization and your product and service teams.
So we didn't just create our processes and workflows in isolation. We co-created these with the teams that were going to be using them. It was really important to make all of our changes visible for product teams to view. So we created self-service dashboards so they could see things like the number of changes raised and also their change success rate. This visibility really helped our teams to make decisions when scheduling changes, and it also gives our operation teams the right information they need when they need to triage incidents and problems. Our risk and audit teams also have real-time access to the information that they need.
The next principle, keep it simple and practical. Try not to over-egg the custard, as they say. Try not to over-engineer solutions. Keep it as simple, keep it as simplistic, and keep it as practical as it can be.
We use this principle to keep the task of filling the change request form really intuitive and simple. So it should only take under a minute to fill out to meet our vision of effortless change management. As each of our changes follows a standard implementation plan and also automated testing, we kept the questions on our change form to only capture what we needed in under 7 fields. This really speeded up the time to log a change with a simple approval system in just a few steps.
The next principle that we want to talk about is think and work holistically. Product teams, service teams, any team in your organization does not exist in a vacuum. These teams work as part of a wider network, as part of a wider ecosystem. And to be able to work effectively, you've got to be able to understand how your work affects other teams and vice versa.
Moving to a lean and agile change process wasn't just about making things simpler for the teams that were raising the changes. We needed to also think wider than this and satisfy all of our stakeholder needs. So we worked with our central change management and our audit teams to ensure that our process and tool changes that we made met our organizational governance and policies, and we made sure that we kept the bigger picture in mind. We worked with these governance teams to include our ways of working in our policies and standards.
The 6th principle is optimize and automate, which again should hopefully be self-explanatory. cut out wasteful work or minimize the amount of what's considered wasteful work, and then optimize the routine elements of that work so that you can speed the flow of value across the organization.
We followed this principle by integrating Jira Service Management with our messaging tool Slack, and this would notify us every time a change would need approval through a streamlined approval workflow. The change implementer can start and end the change by just clicking one button, and that sends a message to all of the teams that need to know so they're kept informed. We're looking to do even more with automation this year by integrating Jira with our other enterprise systems to reduce the need to manually key in data.
And the last principle we'd like to highlight here, by no means the least, is progress iteratively with feedback. This shouldn't be a surprise or something new to many of you from the software development world, but we can take the same approach with service management, where we understand the complexity of the system we're working in, and we understand how to make small changes and then assess the feedback from those small changes to realize whether we're going in the right direction or whether we need to backtrack, pivot, or change tack entirely.
When we first launched our new change process in Jira, it was a lightweight MVP, so we could test and learn really quickly and get feedback from our teams on what worked well for them and what needed improvement. And over time, we've added extra features where we now have live dashboards, reports, change schedules, and calendars for each of our product teams. And we've recently made a standard change template in Jira, which will make things even easier for approving those low-risk changes. Now, let me show you what all of this looks like when raising and approving a change request by putting these guiding principles with Jira into action. Okay, so here's our change form that's loaded up, and as you can see, it's very lightweight and the request for information is already populated. We can then fill in the change title and the description of the change, along with the service that's affected. Next, we select the type of change, and then we choose the proposed start and end time for the change window. And finally, we select whether there's any service outage taking place and submit the change. Now you can see the change has been successfully logged with all of the detail captured. This then fires into Slack, and which our service team can acknowledge with a tick icon. And then we go back into the change and we can move its status to under review. Once we've assessed the change and assigned it to someone, we are then able to change its status to approved. This change then gets sent back to Slack to show it's approved, and it's as simple as that. The requester is then able to go back into the change and start and end it, which also goes into Slack to let everybody know. So you've seen how we adapted our ways of working in approaching our challenges with change management when becoming digital. Now let me talk to you about the benefits that we saw. We saw immediate benefits at team level as we were able to push change management faster and being more agile in doing so to suit the needs of our teams that helped us to create a culture of enabling change. The level of trust and confidence in our teams improved, and that created a happier and more collaborative environment of a better understanding of each of our worlds. We were also able to integrate Jira with our other systems, and with Dev and Ops working on the same platform, that really helped us to explore automation of our change management ecosystem. The organizational benefits we saw were that we were able to adapt to market changes really quickly and meet our business outcomes and also our change success factors. We were able to test and learn with MVP development and get product features out to market a lot faster. And more importantly for us, we were able to demonstrate our other stakeholder needs, that these were being addressed by conforming from a governance, risk, and compliance perspective. And just to emphasize how big a change this was for us, this was our world of meetings, daily cabs, and long queue of releases before we started working in this new way. And as you can tell, all of our changes needed to go and get approval from a cab, so releases were grouped into larger batches with longer lead times. And to illustrate what this looked like from a tool chain perspective, here's lots of manual steps with swivel chairing between different systems and custom tools just to get our work done. This ended up creating a lot of waste for us and a lot of toil, and we were looking at around 4 hours of lead time for a change to be raised and deployed. And contrasting that with this last image of where we are today, we've now got a more continual flow of change with smaller incremental changes and shorter release cycles. Our daily cabs have gone and change discussions are happening as and when they're needed, with most of these happening at daily stand-ups. The investment in Jira Service Management has made a significant difference for us. It's helped us to reduce the number of tools that we use, moving away from manual entry of spreadsheets and calendars to just a simple 3-step process for change. And we're able to link this with our enterprise systems for those high-risk changes. This has really helped us to reduce our lead time to deploy, which now puts us in the category of elite performance in the State of DevOps report, which is something that we're really proud of. And we haven't finished there, as we have some more exciting plans for the future too. The next steps for us are to integrate our existing CI/CD tools with Jira, which will mean that we'll be able to automatically raise change requests from tools like Jenkins. And we're also exploring the use of pre-authorized standard changes for those that are low risk to reduce human intervention. And we're building an API integration to remove the manual keying step between Jira and all of our other enterprise tools to get us under our ambition of 10 minutes to raise and deploy a change. I'm just going to pause for a few moments and let you read what our people have thought about after we've made all these changes to our ways of working. So for us, this is what success looks like. Our lead time for change is under 30 minutes to get source code deployed into production. And last year, our product teams completed a record amount of 1,600 changes, which is around 8 releases a day, and we're already on track for well over 2,000 changes this year. And our change failure rate is under 2%, and when we do have problems, we can roll back changes even quicker with under minutes with minimal service disruption. So you might remember seeing this triangle of cooperation at the start. And I wanted to emphasize that getting to where we are today wouldn't have been possible without the combination of people, best practice and ways of working, and technology changes. We're really pleased with our results, and if there's one thing that you can take away from this talk, I hope this slide inspires you if you're looking to make changes in your own organization as we did. I hope you've enjoyed our talk today, and if you want to find out more about our journey or ITIL 4, then please do get in touch. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference.